Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Monday to you. Michael Patrick Shields, heard all across the state of Michigan. And glad to have you with us here on this snowy Monday morning. It's President's Day, federal holiday. Celebrates the birthday of President George Washington. They implemented it back in 1879. And that was the first federal holiday to honor an American citizen. The day was originally celebrated on the date of Washington's birth, but the Monday holiday law changed it. So now we get it on Monday, and you think about it, a bunch of school kids are out this week too with winter break, and they're probably feeling ripped off, Gary Austin, because they might have had a snow day today otherwise, right?
I think there's no doubt about it. They would have had a snow. No, I mean, it is just, a few days ago, it was like springtime, and now this.
Somebody call the kids union. You know what I mean? If there's a union for school kids and they say, wait a minute, we were going to have a snow day today, so since we have a day off, we get a makeup day down the road. Isn't that what they should say?
They would have a case. If they had a union, they would have a case, no question.
Now, speaking of the weather, it's not funny. 50 vehicles were involved in a massive crash on US 131 that was in Mecosta County on Sunday afternoon. The southbound lanes were closed for several hours. That was between mile marker 131 and 121 for the accident to be cleaned up. And when the snow started falling yesterday afternoon, I'm told that I-94, the ditches seemed like they had magnets in them, sucking the cars off the road. And I made my way back. It took me over 2 hours to get back from Farmington to Lansing yesterday, and it was the Wild West in that there were no lanes. It was all this crumbly, slippery snow. It was like off-roading on I-96 the whole way back, and it was white knuckle for sure.
Yeah, this really caught a lot of folks by surprise. It's really late in the week. There was no indication. We had a forecast of some snow, but nothing like this. And this really caught a lot of folks by surprise, I would say. I know myself, I knew what I was going to be in store for early this morning, so I tried to get a head start. My car's parked outside. And I tell you what, a lot of shoveling and making sure that I had a path, to the main roadway. And I was just hopeful that there are enough crews out to be able to get the main routes plowed so we could get out of our roads okay. But these crews are great. I mean, they really do it for limited resources for a lot of road clearing crews in this state today. They've got a tough job, and they really stay on top of things. These guys are great. I mean, without them,
I don't know. You know what? There were a lot of people talking this morning about the fact that the sidewalks weren't cleared and some of the roads weren't cleared, and they were speculating that nobody wanted to pay the holiday overtime yesterday to get the trucks and shoveling gear out there. There was a lot of suspicion about that, and there were people saying, well, they're just trying to save money, so they're going to let them wait till after midnight on Sunday before they send them out, because otherwise there would be holiday pay.
Well, there are issues and there are concerns, of course, when you don't have enough money to work with to get the job done.
True, but,
it's a balancing act for sure. But those who do it, for those who are on the job, A+, because what in the world would we do without them?
Unemployed Michiganders, by the way, can still file unemployment claims today, even though the state offices are closed. The Unemployment Insurance Director, Stephen Geske, says the automated Marvin system will be operating. You can call in for your benefits just like normal. So that will continue today for whatever that's worth. And by the way, you know who doesn't have to worry about snow-covered roads?
Those who live in Bermuda.
Dick DeVos.
How so?
The Planning Commission in Ada Township gave its approval Thursday for Dick DeVos to use a helipad on his property. So Dick DeVos can now fly his helicopter right there from Ada to anywhere he wants to go. And this has been a cause of debate over the time because it's noisy and it's unusual, isn't it, to be in your neighborhood, sitting on your back porch, and here comes a whirly bird over the top. And there goes Mr. DeVos. He's on his way to Grand Rapids. But here's the deal. There were some restrictions. He can fly only 3 times a day. He can fly up to 125 times a year. And his takeoff and landing hours are limited 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So he has to watch his takeoff times and his landing times.
So now, does Dick DeVos actually pilot this thing himself?
As I understand, he does. And now he can land right in his own backyard. So, if he wants to get somewhere in a hurry, or he wants to pop into town to do a little shopping or go to an event in the evening, Off he goes. He doesn't have to worry about the traffic or the snow. There. Here comes Mr. DeVos. He's come back home for lunch.
Yeah, curious to see if perhaps Dick DeVos may be a trendsetter.
They're going to have to keep track of how many times because he can only do it so many times a year. So if Betsy says, why don't you come home for lunch today, they're going to have to check the chart and say, wait a minute. No, we're getting too close to the end there. I want to go to a ball game later in the month. So, no, sorry, no lunch at home today. And she'll say, why don't you bring the car? And he'll say, car? I got my whirlybird.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there you go. Wisconsin's largest teachers union urging striking members to return to work this week. Governor Granholm, by the way, Gary Austin, made her debut on Meet the Press yesterday on NBC with David Gregory. She's part of the the roundtable group, the discussion group.
Her new gig. She's going to be she's going to be teaching out on the West Coast at Berkeley, and also doing some work for the network too.
So we're supposed to talk to David Gregory from Meet the Press this week and get a review of how she did. But if you want to decide for yourself, here's a little clip from yesterday's show.
The images from Wisconsin with its protests, shutdown of some public services, and missing Democratic senators who fled the state to block a vote evoked the Middle East more than the Midwest. The parallels raise the inevitable question, is Wisconsin the Tunisia of collective bargaining rights? Governor Granholm, what is at stake here?
Well, I don't think anybody disagrees that there has to be cuts. And I don't hear anybody on either side saying that there shouldn't be. And the workers on Friday said that we'll accept the contributions to the pension, we'll accept the contributions to health care. So given that the governor has already gotten then what he sought to do to resolve his budget problem, what is this really exposed to be but an attack on collective bargaining? And so I love, we were talking earlier, I love the smell of democracy. It's so inspiring that so many people feel moved to come out and express themselves. But this in Wisconsin. Make no doubt about it, everybody understands that cuts need to happen, but this is really about collective bargaining.
So that's Governor Granholm on Meet the Press. How'd she do, you think?
Oh, very good. She just falls into I knew she'd just fall into that job. I mean, bringing her background in state government here, I mean, she's very good from an analysis standpoint, taking a good, she speaks articulate, obviously, and she frames her position so well. She's done it in state government for years. She's had a lot of practice at it. And I think that kind of job, she's going to fall right into it. And I bet you, I wager, that's going to be something she's going to be doing for a long time, along with her teaching gig there in California.
I didn't know you were a betting man. You said you would wager this. Hey, somebody won $1 million at Firekeepers over the weekend.
They did.
Playing a penny slot machine.
A penny? Now, is that what?
Indiana Jones penny slot machine. They
is
won
that
$1 million.
What it is? I mean, truly, you put a penny in and see what happens. Is that the way that works?
Well, you don't exactly. They don't take coins anymore. So you put. I don't know. I don't play the penny slots, but what?
I played the penny slots, and last time I played, I won $250.
So how do you work? You don't go in there with a big bag of pennies? What happens?
No. You put money in, and usually it's like a 20 or a 50. And now they have these little buttons that you push that are like 40 cents. You can bet 120.
Can you bet
cents.
1 penny?
You can on certain ones, but you never win if you bet just 1 penny. You always have to bet the maximum bet.
What do you mean you never win?
You could win like maybe 2 or 3 cents.
Okay.
But the only way
triple your money
in Vegas, yes. But the only way you can win like the jackpots, you can get all 7s going across. But if you only bet 1 penny, you're only gonna win like 5 cents.
Okay, so there you go.
So
you can do it if you want.
Bet.
So you could walk in there with a $5, a Finskaroo. You could put a $5 bill in the machine and just play penny at a time if you wanted to.
But you're not really gonna win a whole lot there.
You could triple your money. If you bet 1 penny and you win 3 cents back.
But you'd have to win every single time you did it.
So there you have it, Gary. Somebody must have put in more and played it. Anyway, they won over $1 million on the penny slot machine. Well, sounds funny, huh?
Hey, did you hear the story in Howell? This is really bizarre. I don't know what to make of this. A Howell man, he's going to go to prison. And here's what he did, putting photos of a Livingston County woman in mailboxes with no clothes on. I mean, she had photos of her with no clothes on. Putting these photos in.
She was doing it herself?
No. The Howell man was doing it.
Oh, he wanted to do. Why was he mad at her or something?
I don't know. A judge found this fellow, he violated a personal protection order, and the Michigan Appeals Court recently upheld the decision. So this fellow's heading off to jail.
There you have it.
For this. At least 5 people in this neighborhood in Howell found these photos of this woman with no clothes on. As they opened up their mailboxes, there it was. The photo of her.
Unsolicited.
I don't get it.
I would like to take you on a trip. Actually, I want to send you on a trip, Gary. All expenses paid.
Yes.
It's going to be a sailing trip, and we're going to send you off the coast of Somalia, right over there near Mogadishu, in a sailboat. How would you like to go?
I think I'll pass on.
You can take Dick DeVos's helicopter right from the studio. There he goes.
Because with those pirates out and about, I mean, nothing's safe in that part of the world.
There was a yacht called the Quest that was hijacked Friday off the coast of Oman. With 4 Americans on board. I've been to Oman. Scott and Jean Adam owned the boat. They were accompanied by Phyllis McKay and Bob Riggle of Seattle. Pirate sources say the U.S. Navy is operating in the area. However, an embassy spokesperson is only going to say they're assessing the options and the possible responses. They've been sailing around the world, these people, since 2004, distributing Bibles and living their dream, right? And now the pirates have interrupted it. But you know how this is going to end. Do you remember what happened last time?
Oh,
they will come up with a plan, and it will be implemented with deadly force, probably.
Sail at your own risk.
Well, it's 18 after the hour. Travel around the world at your own risk. What is going on in the Middle East, and what does it mean for us? We'll find out as soon as we get back. It's Michael Patrick Shields. I've been really looking forward to speaking to Professor Raymond Tanter, the adjunct professor and visiting researcher at Georgetown University, professor emeritus, University of Michigan. And he's authored countless books: President, Iran Policy Committee, author of Rogue Regimes, Terrorism and Proliferation, President Obama and Iraq, Toward a Responsible Troop Drawdown, Baghdad Ablaze, What Makes Tehran Tick. Google him, and you'll find them all. But turn up the radio right now because he's with us. Good morning to you. Thanks for being available.
Thank you, Mike Patrick.
Okay, where do we begin here? Let's begin with Libya. It might be fun for a lot of us to think, well, every dog has his day, and we're going to watch Muammar Gaddafi and maybe his son too, you know. And it might be fun to even imagine him strung up in the square and all that stuff. But it's not all that simple, is it?
Not at all. You have a situation where all dictatorships must fall. At issue is whether the fall will be a soft landing or a hard landing. If it's hard landing, Michael Patrick, it's like a Humpty Dumpty type scenario where all the king's men cannot put the country back together again. And at issue is how you can both advocate stability and change at the same time. And the United States policy is trying to straddle the middle in a variety of countries, including Libya, Michael Patrick.
Well, let's talk about United States policy before we go back to going case by case. But in the White House, as you know it, do we have enough expertise? Are we handling it properly? Is President Obama, you know, it is touchy. How involved do you get? What sort of statement do you make? What sort of signal do you send? How do you think from a foreign policy standpoint? And after all, you were on you worked for President Reagan in that regard. How do you think it's being handled so far?
Well, I think President Obama is behind the curve, was behind the curve in Egypt and in Tunisia, and is getting ahead of the curve now in Bahrain, in the Persian Gulf, as well as in Libya. So policy has caught up with events on the ground, and I think Secretary Clinton is doing an outstanding job trying to mollify the leaders of Saudi Arabia who believed quite rightly that the United States was destabilizing the regimes at first, but now understand that U.S. policy has to be proactive with respect to the protesters while trying to get our friends in the region not to shoot at their own children, women, and ordinary citizens.
Is this what President Bush, and I mean President George W. Bush, expected to happen when we went into Iraq? Did he expect to have this sort of domino effect around the Middle East?
Well, the freedom agenda was put forth in the year 2005, which came after the 2003 takedown of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, the motivation for going in and taking down Saddam Hussein was weapons of mass destruction, which couldn't be found.
But
that said, the freedom agenda was put forth, and Hosni Mubarak was one of the first targets of the freedom agenda, which said that unless you create a center, you'll have a situation where the Islamists, you have no choice but revolution led by the Islamists on one hand versus shooting ordinary citizens on the other hand. And the center was not created by Mubarak, and therefore the freedom agenda was never implemented. And George W. Bush, I think, will look better and better, not because of the war in Iraq, but because he was proactive with respect to the freedom agenda, which in effect set the fire or set the context for the kinds of things that are happening today.
I couldn't help but notice last week that former President George Herbert Walker Bush was at the White House to get the Freedom Medal, and I thought they ought to give him an office and put him to work, considering all of his foreign policy expertise.
Well, I think George Herbert Walker Bush is more like Barack Obama. Both of those presidents are realists who would prefer to deal with regimes as they are rather than regimes as we would like them to be. And George Walker Bush is closer to Ronald Reagan, who wanted to change regimes, who was willing to take the risks. So someone quipped the other day that that George Walker Bush is actually Ronald Reagan's son.
Overall, should we be excited at what we're seeing, or should we be concerned?
I think we should be concerned that the situation will become Humpty Dumpty-like, and you can't put these countries back together again. But we should be excited at the prospect of liberal democratic institutions being formed. What do I mean by liberal? I mean institutions that guarantee liberty, like freedom of assemblies, freedom of press, freedom of association, freedom of speech. And if you don't have liberty and you have majority rule elections, you probably are going to have the Islamists taking power in these countries. Michael Patrick.
That's the tricky part, right? You don't necessarily like the idea of Muammar Gaddafi leading, what has it been, over 40 years, something like that. And you like the idea of people standing up for freedom. But if freedom results in some sort of Muslim extremists taking over the country, then you say, oops, I mean, you're really walking a tightrope, aren't you? And from foreign
You're
policy
walking a tightrope, and that's why you need liberal institutions. And remember, liberal in this context means institutions that guarantee liberty as a undergird for free elections. Free elections alone do not a democracy make.
And we can't, the United States, when I say we, can't be seen to be meddling or picking the winners and losers. That's not a very good strategy either, is it?
No, if you put our arms around the protesters too much, you pick winners and losers. But if you put your arms around the dictators too much, you're picking winners or losers. So it's a fine line, and I think the Obama administration is walking that fine line fairly well, trying to catch up with events on the ground, Michael Patrick.
Shouldn't they call you and have you come over from Georgetown and spend like a weekend with the president?
I think that the president would be well advised to listen to this show, the great show led by Michael Patrick Shields on this point.
All the best to you, Professor Tanter. We always like your perspective because we're never sure what to think till we talk to you on some of these cases, and we're living in interesting times. There's no denying that.
Good morning, Michigan.
Thank you very much. That's Professor Raymond Tanter, who was on President Reagan's National Security Council, and who says, remember the old Colin Powell line, if you break it, you fix it. And that's why we're sort of hands-off, watching to see what happens. Watching to see what happens here in Michigan with Governor Snyder and Lieutenant Governor Calley. We'll be speaking with both of them this week. We will be speaking with the governor today. And yesterday on Facebook, I asked if you have questions for the governor, send them to me through Facebook, and I will ask them directly to the governor later today, and you can hear your question asked and answered. You can even make your point if you want to. You can do that on email this morning, too, if you like, at mpsbigshow@aol.com. mpsbigshow@aol.com. And if you want to, send a question for the governor, I'll be happy to ask him your question directly. And it's mpsbigshow@aol.com, or you can go to michigantalknetwork.com, and it'll link you right through if you cannot remember. The state superintendent of schools, Michael Patrick Flanagan, is telling educators and parents they should look at Governor Snyder's budget plans as an opportunity to make improvements. Flanagan, on his podcast Friday, said he's asked Snyder for big changes to plans to overhaul the state's failing schools, scrapping a plan to take one of them into state-supervised operations. So Flanagan says Snyder asked for sacrifices from all of us, including schools. I'm asking all of us to hear the budget message and not do something as I did 20 years ago and panic. Don't panic is what Michael Patrick Flanagan is telling everyone in the school districts and down at the superintendent level. Now, the people who are panicking, apparently Hollywood. The Avengers was a big-budget Marvel superhero film featuring Iron Man, Captain America, and the Hulk that was going to be partially shot here this summer. They've already decided they won't be filming in the state, according to people in connection with the film. They're hearing the buzz that instead of the big tax break of 43%, the rebate they were going to get, instead that incentive is going to go away. There'll be $25 million in each of the next 2 years, so there's sort of a cap on that. They were all set to come, and they've decided they are not going to come. That's what those who are close to the movie business are saying. Now, the sort of salacious story is Jeff Daniels, the actor, the director, the writer, who lives in Chelsea, very famous Hollywood star, but he lives here in Michigan, is saying that the governor lied to him. Here's what he said. He said that he talked with Snyder about reducing the credits but not eliminating them. And here's what Jeff Daniels said, quote, "It's not what he told me privately. So to be honest, I guess he's a politician after all. Say one thing, do another." And we'll ask the governor a little bit later if, in fact, we'll get his reaction anyway to Jeff Daniels saying, "You lied to me." The Dow was up 73, the NASDAQ gained 2 points, and the S&P added 3 on Friday. Wall Street closed today for President's Day, but the bulls are stampeding and running up stock prices, and they're doing it at a rate unseen since the Great Depression. Wall Street posted its third straight week of gains on Friday, and we'll get with Doug Adler coming up shortly about the stock market and why it's a bull market at the moment. The movies, I did it again. I saw the #1 movie at the box office this weekend. Unknown was the Liam Neeson thriller, and it takes place in Germany. It was really enjoyable and pretty good movie. You know, not Academy Award stuff, but an enjoyable ride. Let's put it that way. $21.8 million. Tim Allen, speaking of actors from Michigan, is returning to the network that made him a star. According to Entertainment Weekly, he's going back to ABC, and he's going to be involved in a television show. Guess what he's going to be doing? He's going to be a man who is battling for his manhood in a world that's being dominated by women. You see that? It's kind of the same old role again where he used to do the Maybe we'll see how it. Hey, if it works, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. That's what he'll be doing. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note, and it's one of my favorites today. Jennifer Love Hewitt is 32. Ghost Whisperer, Party of Five, The Tuxedo, and Heartbreakers was, I think, my favorite movie she was in. Happy birthday, darling, to you. We'll get the sports story coming up for you shortly at 35 minutes after the hour. There's lots of snow. And you're not going to get postal service today because of the President's Day holiday. But I think banks are still open, are they not? 35 after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields. Don't forget your questions for Governor Snyder at MPS Big Show at AOL.com or via Facebook if you like. It's MichiganTalkNetwork.com if you want to connect. Back in a flash. That is the sound of the answer man, the music that signifies it's time for Gary Austin to pose his questions to the answer man. I've never been wrong, not once. And I'm putting on the hat. If you're watching on Fox 47 television, you can see I have the answer man hat on, the hat of all wisdom. And if you're here in our Gillespie Group storefront studio right on the Avenue of Michigan, there's a big berm of snow in front. The street is clear, but the sidewalk is not clear, and there's a giant berm of snow separating the street from the sidewalk. But you can still get into the coffee house next door and watch the program in person if you want to come down, or find us on YouTube as well, where you can watch anytime you want. It's Michael Patrick Shields and Gary Austin.
Yep.
What is your question?
John, by the way, MPS is always trying to encourage us to stop by the terrific coffee shop down there across from the ballpark. And trust me, during the Answer Man segment, it's worth a trip down there just to take a gander at MPS wearing that hat. That makes the trip worthwhile, that alone.
They said that MPS has an answer for everything, and so that's how I became the answer man.
It's true.
And sometimes the wisdom doesn't come from the East. That music may have suggested to you that the music comes from the East. Sometimes it has to come from parts South.
All right.
Okay.
Sometime we have more time, you can maybe explain what you mean by that. By the way, we should also
You either
add
get
here-
it or you don't. No explanation
that's
necessary.
good. That's a good way to look at it. By
I
the
wonder
way,
if Mr. DeVos is going into town this morning on his chopper now that the. Well, there he goes. I'm trying to get to work early this morning because there you go. The market's closed, or was he at the NBA All-Star game yesterday? Maybe.
but more importantly,
They
when
own
he-
the Orlando Magic, don't
more
they?
important,
Maybe
when he's in
went
that
to the game.
chopper, is he tuning us in? That's the,
I don't know if you can get the radio up there or not. We'll have to ask him sometime because now he can fly, according to the Ada Township Planning Commission, he can fly right from his house to anywhere he wants. So if you hear a chopper, it's not Apocalypse Now in Ada. It's Dick DeVos. And there are limits, though. Only 125 times a year. A takeoff and landing has to be the DeVos Airport at his house is limited 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So no late night flights, no early flights. And he has to only go 3 times a day, no more than that. So if he
Okay,
wants
sort
to
of-
run out for milk, he might have to take the car.
It reminds me of George Jetson, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It
Can
does sound like
jet
that.
off anywhere in one of those
One of those
fancy things.
spaceships.
That's right. All right, question number 1. Today is a day, we call it President's Day. It's a federal holiday, no mail, offices closed, all that, federal offices. Now, out of all the presidents that this day could have been named after, who is designated on this day as being the president named after President's Day?
Well, it's meant to celebrate President Washington.
You're absolutely positively
Yeah.
correct.
But I guess they throw in
Yeah.
Lincoln, too, so we can get it all done in one swoop. Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
something like that. What year did this, the very first President's Day was celebrated in what year? I don't have you pinpointed.
1879?
Wow.
Yeah.
Once again, your perfect record is intact.
Groundhog's Day, President's Day,
Very
you name
good.
it, I've got it.
It got a new study here. Says women and young people are the most active users of what? Women and young people are the most active users of what?
Helicopters.
No, you know better than that.
Probably I'm going to say maybe the internet or something to do
Yeah.
with technology.
Close enough. Social media of
Yeah,
all things.
yeah.
NetPop research did this one showing women in their 30s make up more than half of heavy contributors to social media, which is defined as engaging in 6 or more social media activities.
Okay.
6 or
I want to
more.
give you a practical application yesterday. I was in Farmington Hills at about 5 o'clock watching my son's hockey game. It started to snow. I started to realize that I had to drive on 96. I looked on Facebook on my little telephone thing, whatever that's called. What is
Yeah.
it? Smartphone? I don't know. And sure enough, people were saying that, they were driving to Lansing and what the weather conditions were like on 96, which road. So I started asking them. There were people who already made it back to Lansing who said, wow, that was a tough drive. And there were people who take the same route I was. So I said, should I go on the surface streets? Should I go on 96? What sort of advice do you have? And I got all kinds of answers. How do you like that?
That's amazing.
Yeah, one of them
that's
was a
right.
television anchor from town who was a female, and she said that she got back, and I thought, well, if she can get back, I can get back, right?
Yeah.
She's in the media business, I'm in the media. So it was Wild West, though, and luckily I have this Chevy Trailblazer 2008 that I'm test driving for Cheryl Freeborough
Yeah.
at Hyundai of Lansing, so it got really good traction, and it's got 33,000 miles on it, but you can get it for $18,000 right now. That's way below the Blue Book value at Hyundai of Lansing. It's black exterior, ebony cloth interior, looks terrific, and it's only $18,795. It's a Chevy Trailblazer 2008, and if you want it, just go to Hyundai of Lansing or go online. If you're anywhere in the state, they'll deliver it to you if you want. They'll take it away from you immediately. But it worked for me yesterday, and so did the Facebook connection because I got good advice on how to come back.
Yep, I tell you.
I'm becoming a believer.
It's terrific plowing through all this snow. We've got a lot of that to deal with today. By the way,
Yes.
after dumping more than a foot of snow on the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, where did that big storm head after it finished off with those areas?
Well, it came to us.
You're absolutely right. It sure did. Made a beeline right for Michigan, right for MPS and his Trailblazer there, but he made it. And that's the important thing. As
Yeah.
you motor around in your Trailblazer or whatever you are driving, gasoline prices, Answer Man.
Yeah.
Are they heading up or down when
They're
compared to
going
2
up.
weeks ago?
They're
Yeah,
gonna be-
every time we turn around, I wish I could report otherwise. I wish I could say, no, you're wrong. They're going the other way. Nope, they're up. You're right. 5
Wow.
cents from 2 weeks ago.
And that instability in the Middle East isn't helping, I guess.
Sure
probably,
isn't.
huh?
Good point.
All right. Once again, the Answer Man has not been stumped. And when we get back, I'll let you know what happened in the PGA Tour yesterday, what happened to the Michigan Wolverine basketball team, what happened in the NBA All-Star Game, and the Red Wings were in action, too. I'm Michael Patrick Shields. So, Mr. DeVos, Mrs. DeVos, they can fly around in a helicopter from Ada, and we got one listener sent us an email at mpsbigshow@aol.com who says, Mr. DeVos lives in a huge complex well set off from Ada Drive. They even built a hotel toward the front to accommodate their many business visitors. The helicopter is really no problem. He was already using it in and out of the neighborhood. I've seen it come by. Some of the neighbors didn't like it, but I thought it was cool. And the folks at Amway have done so much for Ada. They've earned the right to help their day with a corporate helicopter. Thank you very much for that opinion coming out of Grand Rapids this morning about Mr. DeVos being able to fly only the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., so no late night takeoffs and landings, and only 3 times a day is what we're hearing. Now, the Red Wings yesterday were in St. Paul, Minnesota for a game against the Wild. It was on NBC television and on the radio, too, and what a show it was. Todd Bertuzzi was celebrating, his 1,000th game, and he had a big role in this one. Radio broadcaster Ken Kal was there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Todd Bertuzzi, playing in his 1,000th career game, netted a goal in the shootout that put away the Minnesota Wild. Detroit skated to a 2-1 victory in St. Paul yesterday afternoon. Both teams skated well in the first period, but neither the Red Wings or the Wild scored goals. Detroit outshot Minnesota 13-8. No scoring in the second period as well. Detroit outshot Minnesota 8-5 in that middle frame. Nicholas Lidstrom, Martin Havlat scored goals for their respective teams in the third. Jimmy Howard stopped Pierre-Marc Bouchard and Matt Cullen in the shootout. Pavel Datsyuk and Todd Bertuzzi scored on Nicholas Backstrom. Final again in a shootout from St. Paul. Detroit 2 and the Minnesota Wild 1. That's the story. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ken. The new prospective owner of the Detroit Pistons, Tom Gores, watched as Kobe Bryant led the West to victory over the East in last night's All-Star game in Los Angeles, California. Congratulations. And Tom Gores is watching with his wife and family, and also present was the current Pistons owner, Karen Davison. So it all looks hunky-dory, and it looks like he may be the new owner of the Pistons. The Michigan State Spartans tournament hopes still alive. They defeated Illinois on Saturday in that big college game day. I guess people were lined up Friday night to get into the Breslin Center, and they opened up around 8 in the morning. And they had television shows going on ESPN all day long there. Coach Izzo was there signing basketballs and shaking hands and all that sort of thing. And luckily, it was a big win. Kalen Lucas had 25 points, 61-57 win. The party was not spoiled. The Spartans are 7-7 in the Big Ten and 15-11 overall. If they get in, if they can keep this late season run together, it would be their 14th consecutive NCAA tournament. And let's hope so. Tim Hardaway dropped 30 points as the Michigan Wolverines down the Iowa Hawkeyes 75-72 in overtime at Carver Hawkeye Arena on Saturday, too. So that's good news for the Wolverines. And one day after his 20th birthday, the guy barely has a driver's license, and rookie Trevor Bayne became the youngest driver ever to win the Daytona 500. He's the second youngest driver to win a Sprint Cup race, too. And there were 74 lead changes and plenty of accidents yesterday, too, in Daytona Beach, Florida. We'll go live there for the cleanup a little bit later this morning and hear how the event went. In Pacific Palisades, California, Fred Couples gave him a scare this weekend, the over 50 player that everybody loves so much. He used to represent Cadillac. Darn near beat the young guys, but faded down the stretch there. Aaron Baddeley gets the final round, 2 under par 69. He gets a 2-shot win, and what they're calling the Northern Trust Open. It's the LA Open at Riviera there, and that is his third career PGA Tour victory for Aaron Baddeley. Vijay Singh was in second place, and Kevin Na came in third, and Fred Couples came shortly after that. Congratulations to the Michigan State women's basketball team. They clinched a share of the Big Ten title, their first since 2005, by beating Illinois 69-56. On Sunday, and we're all happy for Susie Merchant and the Michigan State women's basketball team. They're going to be a threat to win it all this year in the women's NCAA tournament, wouldn't you say? Okay, remember, Governor Snyder is coming later. If you have a question you want me to ask him or a point you want to make, send it to mpsbigshow@aol.com. It's mpsbigshow@aol.com, and we will ask him. Yesterday I got some Facebook questions we'll be asking the governor later. He's going to be on in about an hour and 15 minutes. So if you send a question, I promised to ask it. The most dangerous occupations have been listed by the Labor Department, and the answer may surprise you. Of course, a police officer, firefighter, that's a dangerous job. But being a farmer is even riskier. The rate of fatal occupational injuries for farmers or ranchers is 38.5 per 100,000 full-time workers. 38.5. If you're a firefighter, it's only 4.4. Police and sheriff's officers, 13.1. So how about that? And the rate of fatal injuries for aircraft pilots and flight engineers is 57.1. And fishers and fishing workers, it's 200. But farmers are up there, too. Here comes Mr. DeVos, leaving Ada on his helicopter on his way to, well, he's coming back, isn't he, from the NBA All-Star game, I bet. Flew that thing all the way from Hollywood, California, and able to land at 7 a.m., so he's probably circling right now, waiting to get home. 3 minutes before the hour. The Planning Commission says he can do it, so he's going to land in his own house there up to 3 times a day. It's Michael Patrick Shields, back with more of your snowy President's Day. Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant President's Day to you. Kids are getting a little ripped off today, aren't they? It was President's Day. A lot of them are on spring break, and a lot of them would have had a snow day today as Mother Nature has reared her head again. Or is it is it Old Man Winter or Mother Nature? Or both? It sounds like a collaboration this morning. Winter returned in a big way across the northern plains and Great Lakes. Heavy snow, significant icing, blizzard conditions to much of the nation's midsection. In fact, yesterday, 50 vehicles involved in a massive crash on 131. That was in Mecosta County. The southbound lanes of the highway were closed for several hours between mile markers 131 and 121. They had to clean up the accident. Several people taken to the hospital. That highway was covered in snow and ice at the time of the pileup. I-94, I'm told, too, yesterday was very difficult to traverse because they said the ditches were like magnets, sucking the cars into them when the snowstorm finally started hitting in the middle of the day. Remember, it was only last week we had temperatures just about 50 degrees, didn't we? And we were starting to believe that, groundhog. But it was a terrible tease. If you're unemployed in Michigan, you can still file your unemployment claims today, even though the state offices are closed for President's Day. The automated Marvin system will be operating. You can call in for your benefits as normal there. Now, the market is closed today, but it was a very good Friday for the market, and in fact, a very strong bull run at the moment. Wall Street posted its third straight week of gains on Friday, and wow, the bulls are stampeding. The Dow is up 73, the NASDAQ up 2, and the S&P added 3, and this is a rate unseen since the Great Depression. We'll try to reach out to Doug Adler a little bit later this morning, see if we can get some reasoning for what's going on in the stock market and whether or not it's going to stick. And we'll touch base, too, with our experts in Grand Rapids in that matter. The teachers' union in Wisconsin urging teachers to return to work this week. That big walkout took place when the governor decided he wanted to limit collective bargaining agreement for state workers and teachers. And Governor Granholm yesterday made her debut appearance on Meet the Press with David Gregory, that NBC Sunday morning show. She has been hired to be a collaborator on that program. She sits in their sort of roundtable discussion. And David Gregory will join us later in the week and talk about how he thinks Governor Granholm did. But you can decide for yourself. Here's a clip from yesterday's show.
The images from Wisconsin with its protests, shutdown of some public services, and missing Democratic senators who fled the state to block a vote evoke the Middle East more than the Midwest. The parallels raise the inevitable question, is Wisconsin the Tunisia of collective bargaining rights? Governor Granholm, what is at stake here?
Well, I don't think anybody disagrees that there has to be cuts. And I don't hear anybody on either side saying that there shouldn't be. And the workers on Friday said that we'll accept the contributions to the pension, we'll accept the contributions to health care. So given that the governor has already gotten then what he sought to do to resolve his budget problem, what is this really exposed to be but an attack on collective bargaining? And so I love, we were talking earlier, I love the smell of democracy. It's so inspiring that so many people feel moved to come out and express themselves. But this in Wisconsin. Make no doubt about it, everybody understands the cuts need to happen, but this is really about collective bargaining.
All right, Gary Austin, what'd you think?
Very good. I think she's found her niche. Talk about a mid-career
What,
change.
talking
Now-
on TV?
Well, no, I mean, I think she's so well focused, and heavens knows she's had plenty of experience as an insider here in Michigan, and to make those kind of comparisons and to be able to articulate the way she does things that are going on, I think that's a big plus for the networks, and I bet they're glad to have her. And I think Jennifer Granholm has found a home there, and I bet she stays as long as she wants to. Between that and her new gig teaching out in California. Boy, talk about an interesting shift. I mean, that's pretty neat, and we wish her the best.
We'll hear from our current governor in just about an hour from now. Governor Rick Snyder is going to talk with us about his new budget proposal. I've been inviting questions. If you want to ask the governor a question, send it to mpsbigshow@aol.com. You can connect to that through michigantalknetwork.com or through Facebook. And so I've got questions from you that I'll ask the governor. But one of the things we're going to talk about, Gary, is the fact that Hollywood may already be running for the exits. The Avengers was a big budget Marvel superhero film featuring Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk. That was supposed to be partially shot here this summer, and they've already decided they will not be filming in the state, according to people who have connections to the film. Just on the mere possibility that the tax rebate, the incentive might go away, and instead there would be $25 million in each of the next 2 years to sort of cap that. And so are they already running for the exits in Michigan? And
Well,
now there's a little spat, too, between Jeff Daniels and Governor Snyder. Jeff Daniels, one of Michigan's, well, actually, he's on the MEDC commercials as the voiceover. He lives in Chelsea. He's an award-winning actor. He's been in lots and lots and lots of movies and always decided to live in Chelsea, started the Purple Rose Theater and all that. He has sort of accused the governor of lying to him. And he says, quote, "It's not what he told me privately, so to be honest, I guess he's a politician after all. Say one thing, do another." And they had this discussion, apparently, about the film tax credits. And when the budget came out, it wasn't what Jeff Daniels expected. And so we'll ask the governor about whether or not, what he thinks about Jeff Daniels calling him a liar. Gary May is on the other end of our line right now. He's the president of the Michigan chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And watching all of this with a certain amount of concern and chagrin, I would think. Good morning, Gary.
Michael, nice to hear from you.
Thank you. First off, are the the movie makers already packing up and heading for the exits here?
My personal observation is I haven't seen that yet. I have heard some of the war stories that conversations are already going on between producers who are protecting their investors' money and realizing that the gray area that's now been created could be a problem down the road. So many of them are choosing to either suspend current negotiations or move on to another state where the incentives are rock solid and in place.
Can you compare the two? Let's just say in layman's terms, what the movie makers were getting last year versus what they would get under the new Snyder proposal?
Well, and actually, Michael, that's a great question, and here's the way I'll answer it. I think on behalf of the community that I work in and have for 37 years, is we have to kind of have a little patience right now until we understand more clearly what the governor's $25 million cap means. We have no idea how that works. No one's told us anything yet. The damage that's been done, though, is by making the announcement that we're suspending or eliminating the credits last Thursday sends this gray area into play, and that damage has now been done. Those people are now thinking of leaving or are planning to go. So now we have to kind of regroup, understand what this new $25 million means and how is it going to play out. It's definitely not a Band-Aid for a large wound. I mean, this is like stomping on someone's heart. On one hand, we're told that the governor wants to come in and create new jobs and more vibrant industries, and that's what we've done with bringing Hollywood to Michigan is a new industry. It's a vibrant industry, and it creates thousands of jobs every year. And the ancillary business for all of those businesses in our towns all across the state, from dry cleaners to restaurants to hotels to taxi cab services. Everybody benefits. So if we're going to say we're going to create new jobs, why would you take these away? There's no answer to that question yet. That's probably the one that's driving the most people crazy.
We will pose that question to Governor Snyder 1 hour from now. Gary May, thank you very much for your chat this morning. He is the president of the Michigan chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Gary Austin, what else is in the news?
Well, I'll tell you, I think Bill Ballard, our MSU economist here, who's a frequent contributor to the show.
Yeah, Charles Ballard.
Yeah, Charles Ballard, rather. You know, his concern last week in this, and I think he pointed out what Governor Snyder, the direction he's heading on this. He doesn't want to create a situation where you have winners and losers. In other words, you have one industry getting some really sweet deals and other industries, you know, not getting the deals that they think they should get. So I think Rick Snyder, the governor's intention here is to kind of level things out and kind of make it even for everybody. And that's, you know, one question that I would pose to the governor. Is that his intent here? I don't think he's targeting anything in particular. I think he just wants to kind of make it fair across the board. I get the impression that's the direction he's heading in, but I guess we'll find out. Got a unique story here. This is in East Lansing. Listen to this. Police have quite the strange case on their hands. Some students apparently had a for rent sign on the front lawn of their place they were living in. The other day they got home and the sign was gone. And several then got into a scuffle over this. Somebody pulled a knife. 2 were stabbed. 1 man's been arrested. The knife wounds are said to be non-life threatening. And all reports are indicating when GM tells us how much money the company made last year, that's going to be done later today. It sure looks like the automaker will post its first yearly profit since 2004, an expected $5.3 billion. And I'll tell you, that's not bad. Even more impressive when we take into account about 2 years ago, the company was dealing with bankruptcy. And some were even questioning, Michael Patrick, if GM would even survive. So 2 years ago, we've gone from that to this in a short amount of time. I can't think. I would challenge anybody to come up with a company, a big company like that in U.S. history that has had such a significant bounce back from bankruptcy to such a sizable profit. It really is incredible, and way to go, GM.
Hey, maybe we'll be saying that about the state of Michigan coming up in the next couple of years.
We hope so. You bet.
He's Gary Austin. I'm Michael Patrick Shields. President's Day 2011. Glad to have you with us. Back in a flash. Well, Hail to the Chief was written and performed well before the 1980s, wasn't it? In the 1970s? I think it was. Gleaves Whitney, I'm sure it was, in fact, is on the other end of our line this morning. He is the director of the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies at Grand Valley State University on this President's Day. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What is the history, if you can tell us, of playing Hail to the Chief for the president when he walks into the room?
Oh, boy, you start out with a tough question.
Is it?
Actually, it comes back from the early part of the 20th century, and it was played. I can't remember the first president it was played for, but it was something that once it did, it stuck. And, in fact, we had a program just the other night at the Hauenstein Center in which Hail to the Chief figured large, and all the presidents who we had present were delighted.
All the presidents that you had present?
We had a number of character interpreters in from Colonial Williamsburg and elsewhere to celebrate Reagan's birthday, his 100th birthday.
Funny you should say that, because we're going to be speaking with a couple of people from Colonial Williamsburg later in the program, and that's one of the most patriotic places. And it wasn't that long ago I got a chance to visit there on Independence Day, and they have, as you probably know, these restaurants that you can go into that they try to make it as much like colonial times as possible. And there's a lady comes around, and she says, General Washington likes this for dinner, and they try to sort of replicate what life was like. It wasn't easy to be president back then, was it? Well, I guess not. It wasn't easy to get a phone call through either. That speaker's a little too loud. If you could turn that down, please. It's 26 minutes after the hour. Gleaves Whitney is with us, the director of the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies at Grand Valley State University on this President's Day weekend at 27 minutes after the hour. While we reconnect with him, bring you up to date on some of the other things going on in the world. That U.S. military ship is shadowing a hijacked yacht. This is one of those situations where you say, what would you do? It's between Yemen and northern Somalia. The yacht is called the Quest, and it was hijacked Friday off the coast of Oman. 4 Americans are on board. Californians Scott and Jean Adam own the boat. They were accompanied by Phyllis McKay and Bob Riggle of Seattle, and they've been sailing around the world distributing Bibles since 2004. And some pirates have taken over the boat, and the U.S. Navy and the embassy will only say they're assessing the situation to see what to do. Can you imagine how frightening that would be if you were on board that yacht, the pirates took over, and what happens now? What do they want from those people distributing yachts in a little boat, or distributing Bibles in a little yacht like that? We try to get it figured out. State Superintendent Mike Flanagan's telling educators and parents not to panic, that they should look at Governor Rick Snyder's budget plan as an opportunity to make improvements. And we'll talk with Governor Snyder about his plan less than an hour from now. And we're inviting questions at mpsbigshow@aol.com, mpsbigshow@aol.com. If you want to send them via email or via Facebook to Michael Patrick Shields on Facebook, we'll ask the governor your questions, and you can hear how it sounds. Hear what his answer will be. The number one movie at the box office this weekend, Unknown. I saw it on Saturday night. Liam Neeson. It's a dramatic mystery, if you will, that takes place in Germany. Quite well done. You know, it's not going to win any Academy Awards, but it was entertaining, and it got $21 million at the box office this weekend. Tim Allen is coming back to television. ABC is where he's coming back. It's a new pilot. It's untitled, and it's going to revolve around a guy who's battling for his manhood in a world that's dominated by women. It sounds like it's not that far from Tim from Tool Time. Remember with the act where he says, he wants to be a man. Well, he's still struggling after all these years with his manhood. Tim Allen, who went to Brother Rice High School in Michigan there in Bloomfield Hills, is going back to the little screen. And we never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Jennifer Love Hewitt is 32 today, from the movie Heartbreakers, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Party of Five, and all the rest. Happy birthday, darling, to you. The Red Wings were in action yesterday, and they had to go to Minnesota to play the Wild, and it was wild, and they played all the hockey they could before they hit the road there in the snowstorm. Radio broadcaster Ken Cal was there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Todd Bertuzzi, playing in his 1,000th career game, netted a goal in the shootout that put away the Minnesota Wild. Detroit skated to a 2-1 victory in St. Paul yesterday afternoon. Both teams skated well in the first period, but neither the Red Wings or the Wild scored goals. Detroit outshot Minnesota 13-8. No scoring in the second period as well. Detroit outshot Minnesota 8-5 in that middle frame. Nicholas Lidstrom, Martin Havlat scored goals for their respective teams in the third. Jimmy Howard stopped Pierre-Marc Bouchard and Matt Cullen in the shootout. Pavel Datsyuk and Todd Bertuzzi scored on Nicholas Backstrom. Final again in a shootout from St. Paul, Detroit 2 and the Minnesota Wild 1. That's the story. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ken Cal. Travel safely. Tom Gores did yesterday. He's the guy who's probably going to buy the Detroit Pistons, Michigan State graduate, originally from Flint. Went to the All-Star game yesterday and watched Kobe Bryant lead the West to a victory over the East in Los Angeles. He was there with his wife and kids and nieces and nephews. It was a nice party for everyone. And also Karen Davidson, the current owner of the Pistons, was along. King James had a royal performance, but nevertheless, it was the Kobe Bryant-led West that beat the East in the All-Star game, if you follow such things. You know the score? This is always funny because they do a lot of scoring. 148-143. 148-143. Spartans, their men's basketball team, still has their tournament's hopes alive. They beat the Illini from Illinois on a Saturday night in that primetime game on ESPN. It was ESPN game day, and everybody had a big time at the Breslin Center. Coach Izzo was there virtually all day, shaking hands and doing television, and all the stars were in, and it was a lot of fun. There were people even lined up on Friday night to get into that show. It was it was like a party all day there, and then in the evening, the game, of course, and they won. The Spartans did 61-57 in a hard-fought game. They're 7-7 in the Big Ten, 15-11 overall, and if they can keep it alive down the stretch here, maybe they can make the NCAA tournament. Tim Hardaway Jr. dropped 30 points as the Wolverines beat the Iowa Hawkeyes 75-72 in overtime out in Iowa on Saturday night. The Wolverines, they've got 3 games left to improve their chances to make the NCAA tournament. They got a home game against Wisconsin. They go to Minnesota, and then at home against Michigan State. That's going to be a real showdown, isn't it? Aaron Baddeley carded a final 2 under par 69. That was good enough to win the LA Open. They call it the Northern Trust Open now, but it's at the Riviera Country Club, their very famous place where lots of celebrities and movie stars used to hang out. Fred Couples had him going. He was only 3 shots back in the final round, but couldn't do it down the stretch. We'll talk to Vartan Capelli, and the president of the Golf Writers Association of America, about how come these guys over 50s can still threaten the younger guys. Aaron Baddeley's tough, slender fella from Australia. He gets the win. It's his second PGA Tour win. And Trevor Bayne, who's only 20 years old, in fact, his birthday was Saturday, wins the Daytona 500, the youngest driver ever to do that in Daytona. And the Michigan State women's basketball team has at least a share of the Big Ten thanks to beating Illinois 69-56 on Sunday. That's the first time they've had a share of the Big Ten title since 2005. So congratulations to Susie Merchant and the Michigan State women's basketball teams. Gleaves Whitney is with us again from the Hauenstein Center of Presidential Studies at Grand Valley State University, talking about President's Day and what it all means. We are now, though, celebrating, are we not, just Washington's birthday, but also this day honors Lincoln. We sort of roped them in together, didn't we, or did we?
Well, we did rope them together, and I tell you, that has been very controversial because George Washington deserves to stand in a day on his own right. Abraham Lincoln deserves a day on his own to be recognized. These are extraordinary presidents. And, Michael, when I go into the classroom and I ask students, why should we remember a George Washington? Why an Abraham Lincoln? Students can't tell you. And, of course, the answer is what we're trying to convey to our students is that George Washington was even recognized by the British King, George III, as the greatest man living because he could walk away from power. Washington did it again and again. Abraham Lincoln, of course, is the president we remember because of his ability to keep the nation stitched together during its greatest trial in a war that killed 626,000 Americans. So we need to, I think, draw attention to Washington Day, Lincoln's Day. I'm rather old-fashioned in that sense.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit cheap to put them on, and you hear President's Day now instead of Lincoln's birthday, Washington's birthday. I would hazard to guess there's a fair percentage of people who don't even really know which presidents we're talking about, especially the younger set, right?
Well, that's absolutely right. And to get back to your first question before the break about Hail to the Chief, this was, in fact, a piece of music that was used to help bolster the image of some presidents. One wit said that James Polk was such a weak figure at his inauguration that he so unimpressive that he needed something to announce his arrival for the inauguration, and ruffles and flourishes and Hail to the Chief were played to help him have a sense of presence. You're absolutely right. Hail to the Chief is really hail, hopefully, to the memory of our best chiefs.
Well,
Commanders-in-Chiefs.
That proves, Professor Whitney, that there's no business like show business, even when it comes to the presidency. It's the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies at Grand Valley State University. Always great to talk to one of the greatest living experts on the presidency, Gleaves Whitney. It's Michael Patrick Shields on President's Day. Questions coming in for Governor Snyder. He'll be with us in less than an hour at mpsbigshow@aol.com. I thought I'd let you ask the questions, so you send them to us via email, and I will read them to him. We did get a Facebook message this morning from Douglas, who says, keep in mind that the General Motors used TARP money to repay the government loan, and the U.S. government still looks to lose money on the loan, currently reported at about $8 billion. So any praise given to General Motors about the turnaround is a little skewed. Much of this was done on the taxpayers' dime, and we didn't see any of the bonuses that were handed out to GM workers. Any of the profits should be grabbed by the Fed. Does that make any sense? I don't know. Let's connect right now with Northern Michigan University. Tawny Ferrarini is the economics professor there. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good. Should we be saying, General Motors is turning it around, but they've done it with our money and we deserve a little something back?
Well, it's hard to, criticize when you weren't there in what people perceive to be a financial crisis.
Yep.
You want to think the best about everyone. Bottom line is we didn't respond to rapidly changing consumer preferences in a timely fashion, and we got caught. We've moved through, and our hope is that what has happened in the past, mistakes and all, will make us bigger, better, and stronger.
Bigger, better, and stronger. Do you think that's what we'll be able to say about the state of Michigan at the end of Governor Snyder's first term, having had a peek at his budget proposal?
Well, I believe in the power of the government. You have well-intended people who are trying to do the best they can with what they perceive that they have in front of them. We don't have access to all the information. We know that the voters spoke, and they wanted to support Snyder and the people that he brought to the table. And we can always find flaws in any plan that's put before us. But the bottom line is people in the state of Michigan need to stand shoulder to shoulder everyone, top down, bottom up. We need to make some sacrifices. We've done it in the past, which tells me we can do it again in the future. Exactly how can we do that? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows.
Well, it's just like the governor was quoted as saying, nobody likes to have their department cut but he said, what's the right thing to do? What are we going to do? And there are people who say, I've already sacrificed enough. I don't want to sacrifice anymore. Nobody likes to be at the other end of the pencil, right?
But I think that it's important for us to take a global view of where we are and understand that poverty in America is not poverty around the globe. And I think it's important for us as individuals not to say what can other people do for us, but what is it that the individual can do to help not only our own circumstances, but the circumstances of our neighbors, of our community, the people who reside in Michigan. And I think it's really important for us to kind of look internally and say we can do this. I mean, Michigan, yes, is struggling, but Michigan is not struggling when we compare ourselves to some impoverished countries. I mean, look at what's happening around the globe. I mean, some people are living on as little as $2 a day. So there is room to sacrifice. It is not going to be easy, but we can do it. And I think it's important for people to look inward again. I think it really is. It's time for us to hold our own individuals accountable and responsible. And that, I think, is probably going to be the toughest transition because we have been the age of entitlement, whether it's corporate entitlement or it's not. We have to move through that era.
Great chatting with you. Nice to meet you. Can we keep in close touch?
I would love to, and thank you so much for doing what you do. And I understand that, Governor Snyder is going to be on later. And if you have a question that you can ask on my behalf, that would be, greatly appreciated. And it's with education because that's our future. And I would just like to understand more about the differential treatment between K-12 or among K-12 community colleges and higher education.
All right, we will ask him that for sure. Nice to meet you, and we'll talk again soon. Northern Michigan University economics professor Tony Ferrarini. Vartan Capellian, who is the president of the Golf Writers Association of America, writes at VartanGolfLive.com and various other publications, longtime Detroit newspaper man. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How are you?
Well, I was pulling for Fred Couples, but down the stretch there, I suppose it was a little bit predictable that these young flat-belly guns were going to go ahead and take it to him. I mean, Vijay Singh's not young, but Aaron Baddeley sure is. What happened to Freddie?
Oh, you know what? I think it was just a tall order going in. The age factor, certainly, and then his sore back. Freddie's going to have an MRI this morning on his sore back, but the combination of Freddie being Freddie and trying to beat the kids. I think the impressive thing was that he still hits the ball the way he does. And a lot of us have said this for a long time, is that you think Tiger Woods is talented? Freddie is as talented as Tiger ever was, or Phil Mickelson, or any of those in the upper echelon of golfers we think are talented. Freddie's got more talent than any of them. He just didn't have the mindset, I think. And again, yesterday when the going got tough, he kind of wasn't up to it. But we can blame it on his age, I suppose.
But it was his age got him there in the first place. He loves that Riviera course. I think he always does well there. I think he's a past champion there too.
Yeah, that's about horses, courses for horses, Michael Patrick. That there are golf courses that we love that fit our eye. And when we go there, we always play well. And I think that was a perfect example. I think the fun part now is fast-forwarding to Augusta, because Couples has two favorite golf courses. One is Riviera, the other is Augusta National. So, hey, maybe there's an encore waiting for us at Augusta.
I hope so, too, because he put on a show there last year, too, Fred Couples. And we'll be following Vartan Capellian. In fact, we'll be with him at Pinehurst and Pine Needles for the Golf Writers Association of America golf tournament the weekend before the Masters there in the South. He's our good friend and our golf analyst, too. Vartan Capellian. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Did they really give away $1 million on a penny slot machine this weekend at Firekeepers? It can happen to you. And Powerball, too, is way up there. This could be the week we turn Michigan around with our own money. Stay tuned for that. There goes Mr. DeVos on his chopper. Dick DeVos, the Ada Township Planning Commission, has given approval for Dick DeVos to use a helipad on his property so he can come and go. Did he go to the NBA All-Star game and maybe fly back? And, well, maybe today with all this snow on the ground, he doesn't want to get in the car. He can hop in the chopper and go anywhere he wants. There are limitations, though. The DeVos Airport on his property there can only take flights between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., so no early morning takeoffs and no late night landings, and he can only do it 3 times a day. So if he wants to run out to get some milk, got to factor that in. If Mrs. DeVos wants him to come home, Betsy, for lunch, he's got to look at the schedule and see, well, wait a minute, I can only do this 3 times a day, and 125 times a year total. But look to the skies for Dick DeVos and his chopper. All around the West Michigan area. 8 minutes before the hour. Speaking of West Michigan, the Firekeepers Casino on the weekend had a big bit of excitement. There was a penny slot machine, a Raiders of the Lost Ark. Amanda, you love Indiana Jones. And at the Firekeepers Casino, somebody was playing a penny slot machine and won over $1 million. 1 million big ones on a penny slot machine. So no scoffing anymore, those of us who like the table games about the slot machines, because sometimes they cough it up. And the Powerball lottery, nobody won that on Saturday. So what do they draw that on Wednesdays? It's like 155 million now available in the Powerball lottery. But Firekeepers Casino does more than entertain us with shows like they've got Stained coming up. And they've got lots of winners like we just talked about, but they also contribute a great deal of money to the state of Michigan, and they are a serious employer as well. And so on the other end of our line this morning, to sort of talk about that aspect of it, is Homer Mandauka, the Tribal Council Chairman for the Nottawasepi Huron Band of Potawatomi Indians. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
Well, thank you very much. And can you talk to us about the payment to the state of Michigan? I understand you're going to make the second one now, and these are funds that go right to the state. There'll be a check presentation today, 10 a.m. on this President's Day.
Yes, I can speak to that. First, I'd just like to say thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor and a privilege, and I've enjoyed watching you over the past year or so.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Just to lead into our distribution payments, those are set up by a compact that's been negotiated between the tribe and the state, specifically Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. And our 2% distributions was just recently released to local revenue sharing board in Calhoun County, and they had received $4.86 million from 2% of the net revenues of the electronic games. And we're also preparing to release $9.6 million to the state of Michigan this morning.
And we're talking about a facility that's been open just about 2 years now, right?
Yeah, we're about 18 months into it.
Yeah, and wildly successful, obviously, and not only for the state and the local area and the revenue sharing and so forth, but how many people does the casino employ?
We're at about 1,300. Numbers go up and down a little bit week to week, month to month, but we're pretty consistent in that neighborhood.
Isn't it amazing to think that you used to be able to drive down, let's say you're going from Lansing, you drive down 69, you connect in 94, maybe you're heading out to Chicago or Battle Creek or Kalamazoo, and there was nothing there. And now all of a sudden, as you say, over 1,000 employees and all that economic generation for the state and the region. It must make you very proud.
Oh, it is. It's very gratifying for a lot of our tribal members and our tribal elders to drive by and see a great accomplishment. It took better than 10 years of legal battles to get to that point. Now that we are at that point where we can have revenues to help out with our gaming operations and services, it's a great economic help to the state of Michigan, and gives everyone a great smile as we drive by it.
And, when you think about it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the person that won $1 million this weekend was from Indiana. And so when you look at the geographic positioning, you're close to Grand Rapids, you're close to Jackson, you're close to Lansing. That's obvious, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek. But you're also close to 2 or 3 other states who can make their way to Firekeepers and right here into Pure Michigan.
Yeah, that's true. Our location is unique with the I-94, I-69 corridor. Fort Wayne being, the largest city to the south, only being, just a little over an hour drive time away. And, so it's a great opportunity in that sense.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Congratulations on your check presentation to the state of Michigan today, and thanks for the nice comments about the program. And we will talk to you soon and see you even sooner.
Yep. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. A very happy President's Day to you. It was an Indiana Jones penny slot machine that yielded $1 million take for somebody, and congratulations to that. I want to win the Powerball, too. I've got that money spent. Congratulations to Homer Mandaka, the Tribal Council Chairman for the Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi Indians. I like to just say that because it's fun to say. Okay, we're Monday morning. We're President's Day. We got snow all over the place. It's not going to be easy if you're commuting. A lot of kids are off school, though, and boy, the kids are riled up because they would have had a snow day today, and some of them are off for President's Day, and some of them are off because it's the winter break, and there goes Mr. DeVos in his helicopter. Michael Patrick Shields, that's me. I'll be with you for another hour here on the radio. Television viewers, we'll see you tomorrow. Governor Snyder coming up shortly, right after the news.